The Death Zone. Let's talk about Mount Everest's graveyard, a section of the infamous mountain so dangerous, so treacherous that it is littered with bodies which now serve as landmarks to new climbers. The ones that survived. Wait. I'm sorry. Today we're going to be watching Death Zones, a bus safety film from the 1970s. Are you sure we can't talk about dead bodies on Mount Everest instead? Fine. Death Zones, produced by Seven Oaks Productions in 1975, is one of a strangely large number of bus safety films released in this era. As a result, many children went to school that morning all happy and feeling safe, and left that afternoon all traumatized and zombie-like, running half a mile down the road before crossing in front of the bus the next morning, being teased relentlessly by her older sisters for that, even to this day. Anyway,
the film you are about to see is about school bus safety.
Geez, give us a spoiler alert next time.
Can you remember the first time you drew a picture for someone special?
If you do, that's not weird at all. Miki Kwan is excitedly making a Valentine for her mother.
She just couldn't wait for school to end.
If she's like the rest of us, that had nothing to do with the Valentine. Miki Kwan and the rest of the children board the cleanest school bus in the history of school buses. The narrator tells us that Frank here, who's apparently a bit of a neat freak when it comes to his bus, has been a safe bus driver for 15 years.
Until one of these students forgets to be cautious and enters one of the danger areas around the bus where drivers have difficulty seeing students.
Gee, I wonder which student that is going to be. The suspense is killing us. I mean, they gave us one whole suspect.
Before this ride is over, one of the students on this bus will be killed in one of the death zones.
Wait, is this guy supposed to be sounding like Rod Serling on Twilight Zone? Must be working because I picked up on it, so good job. Yeah! Board that bus and find a seat. Sit down, shut up, keep the bus neat now. Promenade! The narrator once again reiterates that some kid on the bus is gonna die because the screenwriter apparently has no concept of proper foreshadowing, or proper writing for that matter.
And it will happen even though Frank Green's bus has the latest safety devices, wide-angle side mirrors, and seat belts for the driver.
Is anyone getting the impression they're just trying to sell buses?
And it will happen not while the bus is traveling, but when the bus is stopped.
So the moral of this story is buses should never stop. Howard Payne must have watched this movie and that's why Speed happened. Finally, the narrator tells us what the death zones actually are. And guess what? It's literally the entire area around the bus. It's a nuanced message. Stay away from the bus, but if you do, you probably won't ever get home. So you can live at school or probably die. I wonder how many kids begged to be homeschooled after watching this.
If you find you must cross in front of the bus, wait for the driver to tell you to go across, unless otherwise instructed in your school district.
That's the plot to Speed 3. Dennis Hopper becomes a school principal telling kids to run in front of buses without warning.
Make sure you can see the driver's face before you cross.
Stare into his cold, dead eyes as you wander into traffic.
Never cross behind the bus, the way this fellow's doing.
Drivers love to test how fast they can throw the bus into reverse.
And if you must walk close to the sides of the bus, stay far enough away so you won't slip under the wheels if you fall.
Unless otherwise instructed in your school district.
The students know too, having been taught about the dangers that can occur in the death zones.
How did you instruct them if this film didn't exist yet?
Even though he uses this stop arm and has a member of the school patrol helping little children off the bus.
School patrol? That's a thing on buses? Comment below if you had one of these on your bus, because I want to know what that poor soul did to deserve that job.
And if they drop something, they've been trained not to pick it up. They have been taught to wait until the bus passes and have someone older pick it up for them.
There's a missing homework excuse waiting to happen. The bus ran over my homework and your safety video said not to pick it up, and my big sister wouldn't run into traffic to get it. Miki Kwan is now off of the bus, and Frank the driver starts yelling at some kids to stop fighting as he is driving off. Thus, he is too distracted to notice that Miki Kwan has dropped her Valentine and is now running back to get it. And of course, well, you know what's gonna happen. He warned us 10 times what's gonna happen. So naturally, the solution is move her spine around a lot to make sure she never walks again.
If you drop something in front of a school bus, never run back to pick it up.
What if it's your little sister you drop in front of the bus?
Mihi will never be able to make another Valentine again.
And thus Hallmark had to keep coming up with their own designs.
Stay away from the death zone.
Which is impossible to do when getting on or off of a bus. So the message here, kids, is don't ride the bus.
If you think our story is over, you're mistaken.
Miki Kwan comes back to life for revenge.
Who's smoking back there?
Surveys taken of school bus drivers and pupil transportation directors confirm her views and reveal that of all the groups riding school buses, junior high school students give them the most trouble.
They give the world the most trouble. A scourge of human existence. Junior hires and politicians.
In her mirror, she watches to see what the boys on the bike are going to do. When they don't leave the death zone, Eleanor takes action.
She runs their asses over.
Get your heads back in the window. You can't get away from the bus with your bikes. Come on now.
Come on, Eleanor, you can be scarier than that. Now comes the comic relief of the class clown throwing yarn around the bus.
And it will happen at the next stop. Watch.
How considerate of the narrator to constantly tell us when the deaths will occur. Tony has to be told to get off the bus. Clearly, the screenwriter has never ridden a bus. Unless you fell asleep, you are just dying to get off of that bus. Bad choice of words. To make it even less realistic, Tony and the other guys circle around the back of the bus and begin sharing a cigarette with people through the windows, while the way too polite bus driver just kinda yells at them. Is this a thing, holding up the bus to pass around a cigarette and not expecting to get caught? I mean, I know there's no explaining the teenage mind, but come on. The class clown knocks Tony's books out of his hands. Tony picks up most of them, forgets one, goes back for it, but the driver is distracted yelling at kids on the bus and runs Tony over.
Victim in the death zones.
Wake up, buddy, that's a bad place to nap. And we're not done. I think we found the death zone of the film. This time we're going after the senior high school students.
In one typical year, 1973, out of the 73 students that were killed in the loading and unloading area once they got off the bus, 18 students were junior high school age or older.
And in 73 of the school bus deaths, probably about 73 of them were killed by school bus drivers. Think about that one. Mary is shocked to find her friend is going to the dance with Mike. That has nothing to do with the rest of the movie, but we stopped the narrative for this conversation anyway. I guess they want to humanize the bus victims so we feel worse? It totally worked. I really hope Mary survives the film. She won't. Okay, if one's arm is in a sling, it's usually not in any condition for one to sling their arm up on top of the bus seat, I said authoritatively. I don't want to talk about it.
Sarah Brown, being safety conscious, always makes sure she stops where there's a clearing in the snow.
Apparently they cared about that kind of thing in the 70s. I don't want to talk about it.
The snow, the bus, the teenagers were things she could handle.
It was the demons from her past as a Walmart greeter that finally did her in.
Come on, Charlie, this is your stop.
No, I have to go into the death zone. Apparently, the boys on the bus stole Mary's book and they catfight through the window as she tries to get it back.
Mary wants to obey Sarah, but can't get her book from the boys. Maybe a gentle reminder with the horn.
Maybe a gentle intervention from the adult currently responsible for the misbehaving minors. Even though she has her book back, Mary continues throwing snowballs at the guys on the bus from atop the snowbank. Sarah, the bus driver, doesn't see Mary in her super wide-angle mirror and takes off as Mary slips off the bank and...
The wheels on the bus go round and round.
Shut up, Cocomelon!
They race against time to get her to a hospital, but their efforts will be in vain.
This sadistic little narrator doesn't seem too terribly bothered by that.
Mary Malone need not think about the dance on Saturday night. Mary Malone will never again work at McDonald's or have to concern herself with what's to come after graduation.
So apparently being run over by a bus is the answer to freeing your mind of all your troubles, the end. So maybe there is no real explanation as to why this film is in the dumpster. I mean, how many educational films made it? But there's something a little more special about this bad boy. They took what should have been a maybe 3 to 5 minute film and stretched it out to 20 minutes. Did they think the drawn out shots of random kids and poorly mic'd conversations would endear us more to the victims, and that would somehow make us want to not get killed by a bus that much more? Was there some minimum length for educational films in 1975? Did they want it to be mistaken for a Twilight Zone episode? Whatever the reason, the more they drew it out, the more their message was screwed, because at least 2, if not all 3 of the accidents portrayed in the film were really the fault of the drivers. I mean, yes, help a fellow out, don't pull stupid stunts or distract the bus driver, but the first 2 accidents happened because the driver wasn't fully paying attention while pulling away from the stop. And the third was because she wasn't watching the wide-angle mirror closely enough. It's almost like the message of the film really is, your driver is likely to run your ass over, so you might want to pay attention. Is that really the message the school districts want to put out about their drivers? I think we can all agree that bus safety can be shown more succinctly and clearly than what this film does. I suppose, though, the overall takeaway messages from this film, however they can be interpreted, are good. Kids, don't be dicks and be repelled more by the bus. Drivers, pay attention, you dumbass.
I don't know. I guess the fog rolled down the aisle. And, we hit a bump and it flew all over the place.